Sam, welcome to the
Thanks.
podcast. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it a
No
lot.
problem.
So, you and I went to the same high school and then went off to college, and then we went in our separate directions as far as careers go.
Right.
So, I wanted to orient this in a way where I ask you questions, poke around a bit, and
Hmm.
see if we can distill information that may help somebody else watching or listening to this.
Yeah, love it.
All right, awesome. So, in going to in the beginning, we were both in high school. Went to
Hmm.
Chicago High School, home of the
Yeah.
Cardinals.
Yep.
Graduated in '98.
Yes.
So, how do you think that city, that high school, the people we were in touch with at that time, how do you think that prepared us or prepared you for life afterward?
Yeah. So I think it was very interesting. It was very interesting as far as what I felt it prepared me for, or what I felt it did not prepare me for life after high school. Um, I think honestly one of the best things about it was, I guess indirectly I can come back to it like down the road from a career standpoint, but I think what I liked best about being in EC Central was just the just the people. I think we had a class. I don't know. The school was what 2,000, 2,100 people, and I was coming in from a private school I went to from fourth grade through eighth grade that had like 100 people total. Uh, and that's like 3-year-old program through eighth grade. It was like 100 students, right? And going from there to a public high school back in the neighborhood and that many students, just from a social standpoint,
Hmm.
I thought that was necessary, and that was I think that was awesome experience to kind of go through to kind of set you up for college, right? We go to college, and we're there at Purdue. It's 30,000 people, right? Its magnitude's even bigger than high school, uh, but still dealing with and working with, talking with different people from different walks of life and everything. I thought um, high school was kind of a good premise for that, right? Um, as far as the work itself went, that was kind of hit and miss, right? Some of the work I felt prepared me well for rolling right into college. So, some of the other items, for example, math and some of the other classes, I got into college and it was like a different world. It wasn't quite as uh, the preparation in high school wasn't quite as good, and so needed to buckle down a lot in in college, right? So there was it was a mix, but honestly, the people side I feel is like even the more important side because you can figure out the technical stuff, you can learn the technical, but starting to build the people skills is which is what can take you far down the career path. So I appreciate that from high school.
Yeah, that makes sense. I echo that. And as far as we knew that East Chicago, the high school, the people there, we were going through a certain struggle. Do you think that kind of struggle compared to where you are in life now helped you prepare better?
Yeah, felt it. I felt it did, right? Because if you take it the right way, if you take that struggle the right way, that's something you can use as motivation, right? You always hear if you watch sports that this person or that person's like playing with a chip on their shoulder or something like that, right? Um, I think some of the struggles we went through or struggles that the town went through, right? I think that can definitely be used as motivation that yeah, we made it through, we made it out. We're proud of where we're from,
Hmm.
and it's motivation to show, whether it's in college, right? The rest of Purdue or the rest of Indiana or the rest of the country, that hey, we're not just statistics or stories you read about on the news, right?
Yeah.
We can make it. We can be productive in this world, in this society. So definitely for me, anyway, definitely gave like extra. motivation to do what it takes, put in the work, put in the hours to be successful.
Gotcha. Yeah, makes sense. And as far as, so you went on to Purdue, and then you did an undergrad there, and then you went on to do graduate studies as well at a different university. How do you think both Purdue and that your graduate studies prepared you to get into the job market, or did you do graduate studies afterward?
Yeah, I did graduate studies afterward, so I went to Benedictine afterward while I was in the job market or while I was already working. But with Purdue, I think the biggest thing with Purdue, and I think just in college in general, um, the biggest preparation I took was just how to see a problem, and I guess how to analyze a problem, and then everything you do in whatever role you're in from a career standpoint. It's all about and I think college gives you the the structure or the skill set on how to look at a problem and then start analyzing it. I went into After Purdue, I went into manufacturing and
Mhm.
lean manufacturing, continuous improvement. So streamlining processes to make them more efficient, without giving up safety, without giving up quality, yada yada. And there was nothing, to be quite honest, there was nothing specific at Purdue from a subject or class wise that prepared me for that. I think we talked lean manufacturing in my 4.5 years at Purdue. We talked lean manufacturing maybe for 1 month of
Mhm.
those 4.5 years. And my whole career's been in lean manufacturing. So it wasn't like specific classes that prepared me and like, oh, I'm using, I'm using this triple integral that I learned.
Mhm. Mhm.
There's none of that. But to look and understand a problem is something that I use reference back to a lot. And then also, I think what Purdue was just through the job fairs. Right? That's where I found Eaton. Eaton found me throughout my college career. I was doing internships with them, and then eventually went to work for them upon graduation. So that was a huge piece as well.
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah. I resonated with that where college, I think, helps us prepare to frame a problem, do problem solving, and be able to tackle these challenges, even though we're not directly using what we learned.
Yeah. Yep.
But it's that learning process that is
Exactly.
instilled in us. Um, gotcha. You went through a job fair, found Eaton, or Eaton
hmm
found you, and so how was that first job like? Look.
Yeah, that was interesting. So, I was working at McDonald's, back home in East Chicago, and then first year of college, come back during, whether it's winter break or whether it's the summer, first year of college, back to all right. Then the second year, sophomore year, go through a job fair. Eaton has this minority scholarship program um, that they're talking about at the school, uh, and then I sign up for it. And I want to say it was in like fall semester that I for it, and thinking, I'll hear something back or whatever, right? Of course, they're gonna take me. I hear nothing, right? It's just crickets. It's just crickets. I hear, right? So the months going by, March, April, still nothing. May, school's out, and still have heard nothing from Eaton. And so it's like, okay, back home, uh, it's going back to McDonald's or it's going to, I don't know, Menards. You remember Menards? I think I was about to go apply there, right? And just out of the blue on like a Saturday or something, or a Friday maybe, I get a call from someone at Eaton,
Hmm.
and they ask like, "Hey, how would you like to go? How would you like to go start or have your first internship in Minnesota?" It's like, okay, I'm not gonna say no. Um, so within like 2 weeks, I'm in Minnesota, in Eden Prairie, just outside of Minneapolis. With my first experience in the corporate world. So that was very interesting. The transition going from going from Mickey D's to an actual corporate white collar job. That's different. Conversations are a little different.
A little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. But that was that was exciting because I didn't know I didn't know what I didn't know, right? And it was like just breaking some new ground, right? Amongst my immediate family anyway, and dad's blue collar worker. My mom had
Hmm.
been a preschool teacher. All right, that sister in the military, another sister that was doing social work. All
Hmm.
good stuff, but nothing in the white collar world, right? Nothing to use as a point of reference. So I'm kind of just in there, and it's like, all right, let me see if I can fit in or figure out, what the hell am I doing or what am I supposed to be doing? Right. So, um, there wasn't, it was the first internship. There were just basic things, right? Helping with running some engineering tests. They were doing motors, and pumps at that site. So helping them with tests, doing some catalog, catalog work, catalog updates for them. It was nothing special, but it was that first taste of kind of adulthood and responsibility, right? It was it was a great it was a great experience and kind of got me off on the right foot and like took me into the first of 5 years with Eaton, which included after graduating college. Went to another company, but then came back to Eaton for like a few more years after that too. But that was a that was a very interesting that was a very interesting first step.
Interesting. And so you were totally prepared, even with your degree, to go back to McDonald's or work at McDonald's, whatever it took to be able to pay the bills continuously, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Still had to work, and at that point too, I'm still. This was kind of the my first my first internship, so sophomore year, right? Um, but yeah, you still at the end of the day, right? Whether it's where you want to be or not, right? You still
Mhm.
got to make a living. There's still responsibilities you got to take, right? So you do what you need to do, right? And eventually the opportunity was going to come. It was just what we're going to do in the meantime till the opportunity gets here. But thankfully, Eaton, gave me that opportunity as my sophomore year. We were able to kind of keep it rolling through junior year, through senior year, and then upon graduation, while my senior year, I did a little bit of job searching. The way the Eaton program was set up, I kind of knew I already had kind of in my back pocket, as long as I was maintaining my GPA in school, the internships went well. They were going to be offering me something upon
Mhm.
graduation, right? So I did some job searching, like around Indiana when it got to my senior year, and some factories and some sites around Indiana, around Chicago. Um, but I wasn't like, hitting the pavement that hard because I knew, there's something, there's something they're gonna have for me at Eaton once I graduated. And that turned out to be the case. They did have something for me. They had another development program that I went to for 2 years, where I was in upstate New York in a town called Horseheads that I had never heard of. Um, I think I saw maybe two black people during the during my during my year
Well,
there.
it's something,
Yeah,
something better than nothing.
that is something. Yeah, it looks like we spotted each other. It looked like a long lost family member and shit. Right? It was part excitement, part confusion. Like, what are you doing here? What you doing here? Right? So did that for a year, and then I was in Illinois for another year or another 8 months or so, and then started my full time work with Eaton at one site in like South Carolina.
Gotcha. So you were with
Yeah.
Eaton for 5 years, you mentioned?
My first go around with Eaton, I was there for 5 years. So 2000 to I think November of 2006. So summer of 2000 to November 2006. So about even 6 years, we could say. Of course, graduated from Purdue in 2002. So my first couple of years with Eaton, that was just doing the internships and all that before I started working for them full time.
Understood. And after Eaton, where did you go and then you came back?
Yeah. So after Eaton, I went to FlowServe. So while I was with Eaton in South Carolina, there was an opportunity that came up at another Eaton site.
Mm,
Um, for I was a supervisor. This was also a supervisor position. A little bit more responsibility. Um, but also from a outside of work uh, standpoint, right? North Carolina was going to be better for me at the time. It was kind of interesting because I had been in South Carolina less than 2 years. So rule is less than 2 years. You have to have your boss's permission before you apply. So
mm.
my boss happened to be out of office. I didn't know how long the job would be posted. So I talked to the plant manager, and the plant manager told me to go ahead. Right. So I applied to it. And a couple days later, my boss is back in town, and apparently he didn't quite agree with what the plant manager said, right? So they bring me in for a meeting, and the plant manager is like, Sam,
Uh-oh.
hey, my bad, man. We don't we don't want you applying for this. You're too valuable here.
Mm.
So we have to kind of rescind that.
Oh,
So
Lord.
yeah, being kind of like looking back on it now, I understood because my boss is kind of still was new to the position and new to the site at the time, right? And I understand kind of now where he was coming from, although I still don't agree with the decision. Um, but back then, still in my early to mid 20s, I wasn't I wasn't that enthused about the decision that was
Totally.
made, right? And so um we end the meeting, and they're like, all right, are you good? You're not going to leave us, are you? So I was like, no, I'm good. I'm good. Then like 7 months later 7 months later, I ended up at
Yeah.
FlowServe, right? So FlowServe, oil and gas company, uh, or mainly oil and gas, did like valve actuation. So if you think of, just your faucet in a sink, and you're opening and closing, turning on the water, turning off the water, you're basically opening and closing the valve. So we provided equipment to do that at an industrial level. All right. Again, a lot of it oil and gas, but still, wastewater, petrochemical, a lot of stuff for the U.S. Navy on aircraft carriers and stuff like that, but all focused on opening, closing of valves. So I was there, and I was there for 10 years. Started as just a lean engineer, individual contributor, right, and then kind of worked my way up. Probably one of the most exciting times in my career was for about 4 years. I ended up being over our satellite facilities. So small sites where we're making product for rapid turnaround, right? Small quantities, getting them off to the customer, quick turnaround. So I was over as kind of the ops manager for a facility in Houston, Texas. I was ops manager for a small facility in Bangalore, India, and then I was the project engineer for sites we had in Suzhou, China, Newbury, UK, and then in Italy. So I spent, 3 to 4 months a year just going overseas and just traveling to these sites for 4 to 6 weeks at a time, just being just being out and about in the world, just the different cultures, the different people. Um, that was just awesome. And then my boss and I, we had very good relationship. So I was allowed to like set my own schedule, set my own pace for everything. All right, because that trust was there. So those 4 years were just
Very cool. So I was going to ask you, you've
yeah,
been in all these different positions,
yeah,
supervisor, manager,
yeah.
global P&L responsibilities from what you're describing. Did you ever face imposter syndrome?
Imposter syndrome. So like not this
Yeah,
isn't
this is, yeah, fish out of water. Like, hopefully nobody finds out that I don't know anything.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So what was I would say what was interesting with the 4 years at Flowserve, where I was doing the travel, right, was it all started because of at a staff meeting, there were concerns that our satellite sites weren't following the same process as us, right?
Mm.
And we're going around the table and, everyone's giving advice, but no one wants to actually own the issue or own the situation. So,
Mm.
I put my hand up and said, okay,
Mm.
I'll take it and figure it out. And I was able to like carve out, a 4 year tenure for myself doing that. And so in that case, I didn't feel like an imposter. I kind of knew what the ask was, but I also knew that I guess nobody was into it enough where it was kind of prescriptive, where you must do this, you must do that, you must do that. I was able to kind of do my own stuff and kind of make it the way I want to make it. You know, I had like some high level objectives, but how we got there was like completely up to me. So that was that was just very exciting, very engaging to have. Kind of a little bit of the fish out of water moment came later on, like 2019 to 2021. I was a plant manager in New Jersey, right? And I'm back at Eaton at this time, so no longer at Flowserve. I'm back at Eaton at this time, and yeah, I remember my first day there, my first day at work, right? Just walking in the door. So, okay, now I'm leading. Now I'm leading an operation of a site, right? Not a small facility, small office, but of an actual site. And yeah, it was WTF. Man, these guys not only they they let me apply for this and interview me. They actually gave me this job. It's like what? Yeah, and it was again very very interesting, right? And I had to just lean on
Mm.
just key things that you've learned, right? When you become a manager of people or leader of people, regardless of what the role is, it's what's critical is your people or your team and how you engage them and how you give them the best opportunity to do their best work, right? How do you put them in the best headspace to do their best work? All right, because if you focus on that, regardless of what your role is, you're going to see results. When people
Mm.
are engaged and excited to be there, they're going to put in the time, right, to get things done. And if you focus on your people, the results are going to come. And you know what, as manager or as captain of the ship, you're going to get the credit, right? Sometimes folks, they get into that position, right? They want to be the one that, well, this was their idea, this was their initiative, me, and that stuff usually doesn't work out, right? Because you lose your people, your folks
Mm.
become disengaged. The work isn't, the quality of work isn't there, and you just come out of it looking bad. Where if you
Mm.
just focus on your people, the results kind of take care of themselves. So that was kind of a fish out of water moment. That kind of day one. Um, and then the other kind or the other time was still as plant manager, going through contract negotiations because it was a union site, and going
Mm.
through contract negotiations in the middle of COVID. Um, and at the managers table was myself as chief spokesman for management. The HR manager was kind of my partner, and then we had our finance controller who was kind of our note taker. All of us, our first ever contract negotiation for all of us, right? So, yeah, that was interesting too. That was great to go through and experience once. Um, I don't know if we need to revisit, but
Gotcha.
we kept the plant running. So
Is this something you would put on your resume? Union negotiator, union
it
contract
is.
negotiator.
Yeah, I would throw it on my resume, but I would make sure the job I'm applying to
Does not
does not require that. Yeah,
have.
yeah. So I can impress folks, but I don't necessarily have to use it.
So I know of your work ethic, and it's very strong. There's a trend going on. I guess it started perhaps during COVID or
Yeah.
perhaps a little bit afterward about quiet quitting.
Hmm.
How do you see that? And like, what's your advice to folks who are practicing it or managers who are seeing this in their workforce?
Yeah. For talking to managers that are kind of seeing this in their workforce, kind of speaking of that first, um, I think it goes back to it goes back to engagement. It goes back to what kind of culture do you have in your department, right? I think as managers or as leaders, right? So we can forget the titles, but just as leaders, we have to be we have to be self reflective. All right, we have to be uh, making sure we're creating an environment that shows that we're open to feedback,
Mhm.
right? Good, bad, or whatever. We're open to feedback, a close eye on our teams,
Mhm.
and kind of the way industry is now, or at least when you think global companies, there's a lot of push on doing more with less.
Mhm.
Everyone's kind of stretched, everyone's kind of spread thin, um, but you still can't lose sight or lose touch with your people, with your team.
Mhm.
Understanding like what motivates them, what what demotivates them, what are the tools that we they need, whether it's hardware and software type tools, whether it's soft skill type tools or
Mhm.
mentoring, just what's needed versus, hey, here's the work I need you to do, go do it, and the conversation never extends beyond that, right? So there has to be some engagement there. It doesn't mean that everything will work out with that because you're having that engagement, but you'll at least know what's going on. You'll know what the reasons are, and you'll have a better idea of what to do. Can you eliminate the reasons, or is it something where it's just the wrong fit? Or are there changes that you can make as a manager, right? Um, Flipping that around to a person that you doing quiet quitting, right? It's never good to just sit and stew in your own thoughts, or just kind of just disengage without any conversation, right? You should, even if you feel the situation is not fixable, you should still let your voice be heard. You should bring it up to someone, someone that you're comfortable with, to try and influence, to try and change things for the better, right? Staying quiet is a guarantee that nothing's going to change, that nothing's going to get better. You're not going to be engaged. You're not going to be excited, right? There's no good path that goes down. So to me, I just feel like the more communication, the better.
Mhm.
A lot of folks focus on the numbers, the metrics, and things of that nature, and then the people. And to me, it needs to be flipped around. It's the people first, and then the numbers usually come automatically.
Gotcha. How do you think it has changed since we started our jobs back in the early 2000s, perhaps, and to now, where, for example, in my field, in the beginning, I was in the electrical engineering field and switched to IT, but I was very passionate about both fields.
Hmm.
So it never occurred to me about this trend of quiet quitting. And I understand the folks who practice
Yeah.
it or do it or whatever the nomenclature may be. How do you think that has changed from our generation to the
Right.
generation that is doing this now?
Yeah, I feel like, and just kind of uh, speaking for myself only, and kind of how I was when I first started out. Um, I th- I saw I saw work as kind of like, this is a means to an end. Like, okay, I do like what I'm doing. I like what I'm doing to some extent, right? But given where I'm from, given some of the struggles, it's like, dude, this is like what you have to do at this point
Mm,
in time, right? You don't complain. You go in. Things could be a whole lot worse if you've experienced a whole lot worse. This is a chance of improving and bettering yourself. It's work. It's not going to be perfect. Whether you have a great boss, a bad boss, it doesn't really matter. Just go in and do your job, right? Because this is a means to get you to where you want to go, outside of the end of your life, right? And I think that was my kind of attitude, early on, right? I wasn't really focused on, am I being engaged? Am I being challenged? How's the culture? It was just seen as, man, it is what it is, right? And just go in and do what you need to do. Um, and I feel like that's changed a lot, right? That's changed a lot, where work is also a huge piece of quality of life. It's not the end all be all, but it's a huge piece of quality of life. And being being engaged, where you have an enthusiasm, for what you're doing, to get at, I think that's critical. I feel like
mm,
um, it's something that's more important than ever, right? And if that's if someone doesn't like the culture, it feels like these days, or the younger generations, if the culture is an issue, right? That's enough, and that's important enough to leave, to make a move, right?
mhm.
Where before, right, we're closer to the generation before us, where, all right, well, this was the place you worked, and you just worked there
Yeah,
till the wheels fell off, till they shut down,
exactly.
or whatever,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And no, that's not the case anymore.
Mhm,
This is more a key piece of life and life fulfillment versus just a means to an end.
mhm,
And
mhm,
I think folks that are leaders or managers of people, right, need to understand kind of that shift in mindset,
mhm.
and adjust accordingly.
You know what? I think what has compounded this is, again, probably because of COVID, is that there's a lot of remote work being done. So there's whatever culture there was is no longer present from
Yeah.
working from home.
Hmm.
So there's a push to go back to the office, to hybrid work, etc. How do you think that trend is going to continue with remote work, or do you feel that depending on the industry, more hybrid or in office would be better suited?
Yeah, I feel like, so there's kind of two ways to me to kind of to answer that question. As far as what's most effective, I feel like hybrid or on site, in most cases, right? In most cases, is still the most effective method, whether it's from a culture standpoint, whether it's from a result standpoint. I still feel like that's the most effective method. However, I feel like remote work is here to stay, right?
Mhm.
Companies that offer that, that's a competitive advantage. It's a competitive advantage for to get talented folks into your company. And as long as that's the price of admission to get talent, then remote work, it has to be here to stay, right? As long as one company is still doing it or
Mhm.
two companies are still doing it, everyone else has to fall in line if they want an equal shot at that top talent. So it's almost irrelevant, maybe too strong a word, but it's almost irrelevant as far as what's the most effective method what's the
Mhm.
least effective method. It's just what's the situation that we're in, what's the demand, and the supply has to meet that demand. That's just how it is.
Yeah, yeah, totally agree with that. I've also seen some stats recently that the college enrollment rate has dropped drastically. I guess it depends on the state as well. And then people are going for more certificates, et cetera, or whatever the skill set may be required for the job. Do you see that as a problem in the next 5 to 10 years?
Honestly, I don't see it as a problem. I actually kind of see it as almost a good thing, because if we just have like our engineering brain on for a second and we
Mhm.
just think about, okay, what's what's the need in city, state, country, what's the need, and then how do we best fulfill that need, right? And the best way to do that could still be through the 4-year degrees and technical degrees, and the STEM studies. That's still a way, but also certifications, the trade schools, whether it's lineman work, whether it's plumbing, whether those are still like massive needs to to ensure folks have access to the different tools or to the different avenues to achieve the specific needs that we have in this country. And I feel sometimes college gets pushed too much,
Yeah.
where there are degrees that may not be, mm, I don't know, as uh productive or as impactful as other degrees. Or the same goals that were done through 4 years of college could have been achieved through like 2 years of trade school, right? And I think sometimes college has been looked at a one size fits all thing, that everyone needs to go to college. Like, no, I don't think that's the case. Everyone needs to find what their interest is, and then find the best path to meet their goal or meet their personal goal. And that's not college in every case. So I feel like that's in some ways that's good, that it comes down, that it the enrollment level comes down a bit, that it raises eyebrows to do some
Mhm.
deeper digging
Yeah.
and to do more root cause, and not just broad brush, oh, everyone go to college and just get
Yeah.
some kind of degree.
Yeah, interestingly, what I'm seeing perhaps in the news media is that they are saying that this is likely because of the student loan debt that piles on after people graduate and they're not making enough to be able to pay for it,
Sure.
and interest rates are through the roof. But what I did like about Northwest Indiana specifically was that we did have vocational schools there because it was an industrial town. So there you always had an option to do that. If the 4-year degree is not what you want to do, or
Yep.
you don't have any interest in whatever to pursue something there, you go here.
Yeah.
So having options was a good thing at that point. But I agree with you that I think has gone way down.
Yeah. Yeah, and it has. It was something where when I was working in Georgia with Eaton, I was out in Georgia as well. I know ship team there, we were working very hard with one of the technical colleges that was familiar for us and trying to create like apprenticeship programs, vocational vocational programs, right? Not just to pull talent from there, but also having our team members, our workers, be able to go there to pick up certain certifications or
Mm.
2 year degrees. Of course, 4 year degrees if they wanted 4 year degrees, but there's just several options available. And
Mhm.
I just feel like we need to do more of that, especially technology. The technology continues to increase. We see through COVID, whether it's through Teams meetings and Skype and Zoom, and there's you know, you can things are not your options aren't just limited to the town or the county or the state that you're based in. That there can be plenty of options that if we want, right, that our leaders, our representatives can make available to folks so that they're choosing the right path versus this is the only path available. And I think, I mean, this would be like another podcast, but the student loan debt and just the way colleges are kind of set up and the
Mhm.
way financial aid, more specifically like government loans and all that, just the way it's set up, it's set up to be kind of a death spiral, right? More loans given out, uh, the tuition rate goes up accordingly because it's almost free money to the colleges because government's going to increase the loans they give out, right?
Mhm.
And so students get stuck with higher debt,
Yeah.
right? It's like a death spiral, but that's a whole other thing.
Well, speaking of education, AI is becoming very prominent these days,
Hmm.
especially because of ChatGPT, where millions of people can just interface with it and start typing and get an answer back.
Yep.
How do you see
Skynet.
that affecting Skynet? Exactly. We're all afraid of Skynet. It always ends with always ends with the Terminator. It
That's
always
right.
ends with
Yeah,
Terminator.
exactly.
All the movies. How do you foresee that? So I'm in the IT industry. It's impacting it very powerfully. How
Hmm.
about in your industry?
Um, it's it's getting there as far as the impact goes. It's definitely getting there as we go through and we come out with new products, right, and new equipment to make those products. We're incorporating more and more um, intelligent equipment that can be
Mm.
taught, where it's not just loading in a program, if you're about like a CNC machine. It's just doing what it's told, no more, no less. um, we're starting to incorporate equipment that has the technology where it can see, it can remember, right, and it can learn as it goes along, right? Especially that's huge from like from an inspection standpoint, from a quality standpoint, right? Stuff like that is Stuff like that is major and a major advancement. So I see it. And it may not be as big yet out in the industry as say like in specific fields like IT, like your field, but as we're doing our future state planning and we're working on major projects, it's becoming more and more. It's becoming more and more of a thing, and it's just growing. It's just growing everywhere. I mean, you see it, outside of industry and the driverless cars and things like that, right? It's growing. It's expanding incredibly fast.
Yeah, I think especially with the advent of in manufacturing specifically, where you have these headsets you can wear and you can have augmented reality be part of your
Yeah.
the way you're working. I think that's pretty powerful as well.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. And we had uh, kind of from COVID, right? And unfortunately, I'm having a brain fart right now. I can't remember exactly what
Hmm.
it was, but it was basically almost a helmet, right? We're putting on,
Hmm.
right? And we're going in through the helmet into like a
Hmm.
Teams meeting, right? And the
Hmm.
team can see what you're seeing through the helmet,
Hmm.
right? And you can be again out on the shop floor. They can be,
Hmm.
wherever the hell they are, and you're seeing the same thing, right? And
Hmm.
it's not looking at just still pictures, still photos. You're looking at live shots. You're able to see exactly what the person that's working is seeing, and yeah, again, just has a major impact in what we're doing, in kind of how we troubleshoot and how we communicate. Um, it's just becoming huge, and then it ties together, right? The last question talking about working remotely and working hybrid, right?
Yeah,
As the technology grows, technology advances, right? That becomes a more those things become more and more feasible as options.
totally. So going back to your days at Eaton, so you had Eaton, then you had Flowserve, then back
Yep.
to Eaton,
Yep.
and then you left to join Stryker. So
Correct.
what was that transition like, and what is your current
Yeah.
role? What do you do
Yeah.
now, and how is it different than what you were doing before?
Yep. So, before I was at Stryker, I was in New Jersey. I was in the plant manager position, and it's an interesting question because my while in New Jersey, my perspective kind of changed on what's truly important, right?
Mm,
And as we get older, as our situations change outside of
mm,
work, your perspective on what's important, not important, changes too. So in started in January of 2019 in New Jersey. In May of 2019, um, our daughter Samara was born. Right, and now, as a family guy, right, you know from video games, and just
yeah.
being childlike as long as possible. All of a sudden,
Hmm.
I'm a dad and a husband, which is you know is ridiculous. But so
Gone are the days of basketball tournaments
yes,
and all
yeah,
this. Yeah,
exactly,
yeah.
exactly. All those days have been put behind us, and like I actually got to act my age and craziness like that, right? And so being plant manager in New Jersey, there were, and as well as not just a manufacturing site, but a union site, which
Hmm.
nothing positive or negative about unions, but there's additional work that comes along with that. There's union management meetings, obviously the contract negotiations that I mentioned earlier.
Hmm.
Um, there's just additional add-ons, right, versus a site without a union. And being over that site also meant I had responsibility for the facilities of the site. Um, in winter, are we getting the snow plows out there? Are we putting the salt down? Right. It's not just about what kind of widgets are we making and how many did we make today.
Hmm.
And so there was a lot of responsibility, and just given kind of my my touch of being a workaholic, right? It was a 6 and sometimes 7 day job, right? And even if I wasn't working, I was thinking about work, right? To the fact that it was noticeable, to my wife, right? And that there were times, not many times, right, but there were times where I would leave to work, which every day I'd leave to work before my daughter was up. There were a couple times, right, I would be back after she had slept, right? So like no time,
Hmm.
no time with her. And it got to the point where just two things. One, I enjoyed the kind of the work I'd been doing previously, the lean manufacturing work, the operational excellence managing work that I was doing. I had enjoyed that a lot because it was more people interactive, and it was a lot more focused on problem solving, the issues affecting the site, from from a metric standpoint. That was one item. And then the second item was just the work life balance, right? And am I giving the right amount of time to my family, right? And I didn't feel like I was doing that. So, uh, my wife and I started looking, mainly for positions back in Indiana, back in Chicago, right? Going back home to my family. Um, but then a recruiter from Stryker reached out to me, uh, and said, "Hey, they have this continuous improvement manager opportunity in Salt Lake City, Utah." And growing up, I'd always been a fan of geography, right? I enjoyed geography, and just going to states that you know most people back east would be like, where, what are you
Hmm.
doing, right?
Hmm.
And so, since I know most folks would be like that, that made me even more interested. And it's like, what the hell, let's do Utah,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And so,
Carl Malone has a dealership out there that I
yeah,
passed
he
by.
does. Yes,
So there you
he
go.
does. That's right, exactly. And I was one of the few jazz fans in Chicago. So yeah, high school graduation was just Jordan shoving Brian Russell out the way and hitting that shot. That's my high school graduation memory. Nothing that actually happened during graduation. Yeah, it was a dark time. It was- so yeah, and it was funny. So I'm doing the interviews and stuff. We're still like in the midst of COVID. This is late 2020, early 2021. Um, and so I don't go on site. It's all done virtually. And I end up getting an offer, and my wife and I again are talking about it. And it's like, man, we haven't seen the area, although we've read up on it.
Mm.
We haven't seen the site. We haven't necessarily met people at the site, but you got one life to live, man. So it's like, what the hell? Let's give it a try. All right. So, we came out here. My first time on site was my first day, at work. And I would say, just like any other manufacturing job, there's just stresses and ups and downs, etc. But it's been great. The people have been great. My team's been great. It's been an awesome experience. And then too, kind of what we're making out here, we're producing medical devices for stroke victims. So this is what they're using in the emergency rooms for folks that have suffered a stroke,
Mm.
to alleviate the stroke. Right. So literally making life
Mm.
saving devices. Right. So it's just been exciting. The area's been great. So many things, for Samar to get into. Um, yeah, it's been awesome. It's still, like I said, a lot of companies, it's all about doing more with less. So it's always a balancing act, right, between that work life balance, right? And that's continued. I can't say it's been perfect, but we're still, I still work on that. But it's been a great move. And certainly, you know, from coming from east, coming out to Rocky Mountain West, just so different, so different. I'll leave it
So gotcha, gotcha. So going back to what you talked about in the university and preparing you to be
there.
able to think and learn and problem solve,
Yeah.
there's an old proverb which is, when you teach a person to fish,
Yeah.
they can fish for a lifetime.
Yeah.
Given, and you obviously when you give them a fish when you give them a fish, they can only feed for a day.
Yep.
So given the amount of microplastics, chemical spills, and oil
Uh-huh.
spills that are in
Yeah.
all of our waters, do you think that
Yeah.
proverb still applies?
Of all the questions I was thinking of, that you could ask. I think the proverb still applies. The person you teach may not live as
Hmm.
long, right? May not
There
live
you
as
go.
long,
There you
right?
go.
But it'll still apply,
Still applies.
Yeah,
Hmm.
it still applies. But
All right.
honestly, I mean, just to like spin it back, to um what I've talked about or mentioned before, right? Like people are most important. I think the biggest thing that kind of keeps me going is just developing and teaching my team, right? So they could move on to
Mm,
bigger and better things in their career, right? That's kind of where I get my thrill from versus something that I've done or some process that I've done or changed or improved, right? It's more just seeing my team to be happy at work each day and to work on things that's going to move them on their career path. So I enjoy teaching folks to fish.
awesome. That's great. So, Sam, in ending, I do have a
Yeah.
small quiz prepared for you.
Oh,
It's just
jeez.
going to be three quotes that you have to guess who said it, and it's very, very popular quotes, so I'm sure you'll
Oh
get them all.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's just three, and
Okay.
I'll give you hints if you need them, but I don't think
Okay.
you'll need any
All right.
hints.
Let's see.
All right,
Let's see.
let's go for it. I'm gonna share my screen real quick.
Okay.
Alrighty, here comes
Okay.
the first one. Let me see. There we go. So who said that one?
Nice. Yeah. Franklin Roosevelt said that
Very good, very good. Awesome.
one. Yeah.
Perfect. See how easy this
Yeah.
is? All right, that's
Mr.
number
Meidel
two.
history. Shout out to Mr.
Mr.
Meidel.
Meidel. Shout out to Mr. Meidel. All right, here we go. Number two.
Yeah. This hurts. This hurts, dude.
You know this.
Michael Jordan said this.
It's attributed to Michael Jordan, but it was said by a
Was it?
hockey player. It
It
was said
was
by a
said
hockey
by a
player.
hockey player. Okay. Let me go down the list.
Known as the Great One.
Oh, Wayne Gretzky.
Wayne Gretzky, man.
Okay.
I know
Okay.
it's in my head too. I was like,
I
oh, it
know.
must be
I was thinking
Jordan.
Jordan. Yeah.
Jordan,
Yeah.
yeah, but what it
Wayne
was
Gretzky.
Wayne. Yep.
Imagine
Alrighty.
him
One.
in a Rangers jersey, dude. I
Yeah,
mean,
Rangers, New York
Edmonton or
Rangers.
the Kings is like most of his
I
career.
just Wikipedia'd it.
Oh, that's
Um,
nuts. That's nuts.
alrighty. Last one. Let's see if we
Okay.
can get this one.
Okay.
Alrighty, here we go.
Oh, completely. I'm gonna need some hints on this one.
Not an everyday person. Not everybody would know this person, so it's okay if you
Okay.
don't know. But just throw out a guess.
Uh, what kind of feel?
Um, sports,
They were in sports. No, was it
or entertainment.
or
They were in both.
oh really?
Yeah,
Oh,
you were pretty close.
yeah,
You were
I'm
pretty
pretty
close.
close. Oh, the Undertaker. Oh, that's my guy.
That's your guy.
I was expecting a wrestling one, but I thought it was gonna be like to be the man, you got to beat them, or what you gonna do? That's what I was waiting for, man. That's
Oh my Lord. Sam, it's been awesome, man. Thank you
yeah,
so
man.
much. I
No
think
problem.
we filled a good hour for this.
Beautiful.
And thank you for being
Yeah.
here.
Awesome.
You got the
Appreciate
crowd
you, man.
clapping.
That's right. First time I've heard applause ever. Certainly not at our 3-on-3 tournament.
Sam, thank you so much, man.
Yeah, no
Catch you next
problem.
time.
Appreciate it,
Alrighty.
brother. Talk to you, man.
Okay.
See
Talk
ya.
to you soon. Bye bye.